What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Big Time Football Talk. So I thought a good way to kick off this show was to kind of, dive in and see, some of the top college football teams next year who are potential, contenders for the college football playoff and, likely be in that top 10 mix. So I thought we'd get straight to it. One team I like, Texas A&M, guys. Texas A&M, this is a team that is really on the verge of breaking through. Jimbo Fisher is a guy. I love this hire, and I was very shocked that he left Florida State because he's a guy that's got there before. He's recruited so well, and he's recruited very well at Texas A&M now. Isaiah Spiller, one of the notables back. The season didn't start off so hot. The big loss by Alabama, but it turns out Alabama was just head over heels that much better than everyone else. And Jimbo. So you got the coaching and you got recruiting, and this is a team that if it just takes one of those years to get over that Alabama hump, as Jimbo Fisher when he was in the ACC, Clemson was trying to get over Florida State. Jimbo Fisher now is on the opposite side of that. He's trying to get over Alabama because the SEC West, the road goes through Tuscaloosa, and Alabama the cream of the crop in that division. So Texas A&M is team to watch out for next year. And Georgia, the big thing was, Stetson Bennett led the way early on. JT Daniels did a good job. The transfer from USC did a great job coming in and, helping this Georgia team win some games and, end up beating Cincinnati in the bowl game. But, Georgia, like A&M, SEC is just recruited so well, had a little easier road getting to the championship game in recent years. It's becoming Georgia and Florida in the East, and they'll lose some key guys, Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes in the secondary, Azeez Ojulari, but they got some guys back. George Pickens, one of the a talented young wide receiver, got some weapons there. Is trying to think, is Zahir White. Is White the run? James Cook's back at running back too. Delvin Cook's younger brother. So and Oklahoma too is another team. Going by Bleacher Report's top 10, Oklahoma is another team. This is a team that just kept getting better and better on the defensive side of the ball. Alex Grinz, their defensive coordinator they brought in, has done a good job of improving this defense because this was a defense that I remember a couple years ago with Kyler Murray just was not very good. One of the worst defense to reach a championship game, and the worst to reach the college football playoff. So it's good that they've shown improvement there. Ohio State obviously will be in the mix to Master Teague back at running back, and have a new quarterback who whoever that might be, obviously recruited well. Some of the best wide receiving core in the nation, Ohio State: Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Defensive side of the ball, they have some departures, but they have some guys with experience on the defensive line, and have some guys back in the secondary. Marcus Hooker, notable one at safety. Wisconsin on the list too. The Badgers, Graham Mertz, a quarterback, will be back. And Wisconsin, they've really established themselves as one of the, most stable and consistent programs in the Big Ten for football. So, Wisconsin will be right back in the mix, too. They've recruited so well, and they recruit so well in the trenches every year. So, one of the more physical teams in college football, Wisconsin will be right there. USC, obviously the big news, Caden Slovis, returns at quarterback, and this is an offense that really played very well this year. This was a USC team that looked very well prepared. I think I saw Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I think USC players were really devoted to playing this season, and it really showed on the field, coming up just short in the Pac-12 title game to the Oregon Ducks. But with the exception of the 2019 class, USC, they've recruited well, and they'll always be one of the top 2-3 most talented teams in the Pac-12 year in and year out, and will likely have a good shot of repeating and winning this year. And Slovis is going to be right up as one of the top quarterbacks for the 2022 draft. Notre Dame Fighting Irish, once again, like A&M, just a well-coached and well-run program. Get a lot of hate because they're just not getting it done in the championship level games, with whether it's the playoff or the national title game if you go back a few years. But Notre Dame has recruited still pretty well, not like at a super elite level, not at a top 5 level, but top 10 to 15 every year. And they lose Ian Book. It will be gone at quarterback, but tight end Meyer was a Michael Mayer, will return for the Irish. Very talented kid, and they'll have some pieces back for the Irish in 2022 or 2021. Miami Hurricanes. The big news is quarterback De'Aaron King is going to return. They'll lose some guys on offense, Brevin Jordan, and then Gregory Rousseau on defense. But Cameron Harris will return at running back. And this was a Miami team, I think, that was very underrated this year. If you look, if they beat Clemson, they would have been right in the discussion for the college football playoff. They lost just 3 games this year, and nearly won the bowl game. Had a chance to be 9-2 on the season. So watch out for the Miami Hurricanes next year. That'll be a team on everyone's radar. And then, of course, Alabama. Alabama is going to lose, a couple guys at receiver, but they had so many young players contribute this year. Will Anderson and Christian Harris at linebacker will be one of the top linebackers potentially for next year's draft. And Malachi Moore, and then the recruiting class they're bringing in this year, they're bringing in, just going to stay loaded at the offensive line position as they landed 2 of the top tackles coming in. Drew Sanders is a guy to watch out for on Bama, and Bryce Young. We'll see if he can take the next step at quarterback for him. So, but Alabama is going to be a team right in the mix of it, and they're not going anywhere. Likely will still win the SEC. So. So, next, so I thought about who, let's shift to the NFL draft here. I thought about who was the best edge rusher this year in the 2021 NFL draft. Kwity Paye, Gregory Rousseau, kind of, those are kind of 2 guys that keep coming to the top. Kwity Paye, his production was kind of up and down at Michigan. He's, he's super talented. Doesn't really have like an elite. Doesn't have really like elite get off, but I think he'll be right in the mix as, a guy that'll be, could, shoot up the draft board or shoot down the draft board. Gregory Rousseau. I don't know what to do with Rousseau. The more I hear about him, the more I like him. I listened to an interview with Brevin Jordan, said he is just a nightmare block, which is really high praise coming from a guy, that tight end that really, had to go against him day in and day out in practice. So, good to hear that. And, he's a guy that needs to improve some power, but he said in the offseason his body fat has continued to go down, and he's just continued to, get in better shape. A lot of these guys that opted out, he said they're in some of the best shape of their life because, the whole time they've just worked out. Caleb Farley, that was the case for him too. So, but, it'll be interesting. Like I said, no elite pass rusher, but I think I got Kwity Paye, Rousseau at the top, Carlos Basham right in there, and the kid from Pitt, whose name's escaping me, number 91, Patrick Jones. Patrick Jones, I like a lot. He's got a quick get off. Needs to work on playing with a lower pad level and getting a better bend. But I don't know if that's something that he could improve on. I think it is, but it's easier. It's easier said than done. So some other notable names I like. The other kid from Pitt is very good, Rashod Weaver. He was All-American. Jalen Phillips is a guy that's getting a lot more talk. Mel Kiper really likes him. He's got the elite size, and the production was there for Miami. Miami really has 3 guys at DM that'll get drafted if you count Rousseau opted out. Quincy Roche-Shear was a guy transferred into Miami, had a pretty productive year, and But yeah, you've seen Jalen Phillips. You've seen a lot of guys with kind of like the one hit wonder, productive season. They don't necessarily contribute for the NFL. That's why this year, like I said, it's gonna be so hard to evaluate because you got guys that were productive this year that rose, were projected as sophomore that opted out, were productive for a few games and opted out. Like Rashod Bateman, Basham was in that. Rashod Bateman, a receiver, is an interesting guy. Because he had a pretty productive career, but he's kind of like in the Kadarius Toney territory, and by that I mean he's not being discussed as one of the top, but people can see him having a high ceiling, and if he goes on to make an impact year one in the NFL or several years in the NFL, people will look back and say maybe we should have looked at Rashod Bateman, but obviously last year things were better in places. This was more of an explosive Minnesota offense and more on board, obviously pre-COVID times. And with Tanner Morgan and a better O-line and better weapons around him. But Minnesota was a little disappointing. Mohamed Ibrahim, a talented running back, they have too. Bateman's a guy that I keep looking at top tens and I keep going back and I keep forgetting about Bateman, that he's super talented and had a good game against Michigan. Didn't score a touchdown, but I think he had double-digit catches and was over 100 yards on that game. I think played just 3 or 4 games this year. But can't really forget about Rashod Bateman. So I want to get into Daniel Jeremiah, break down some more of the guys in his. Top prospects for 2021. Yeah, it's interesting when you get in the middle because there's a lot of guys that I think some people are a lot higher on, and it's I discuss edge rushers because there's the Levi Unzarike, or if I'm saying that right, from Washington. There's so many guys that are Davion Nixon from Iowa. There's so many guys. Some people have them, these guys, they're top 20, 30, I think Pro Football Focus, and then, other people have them more down, 50, 60 range, and it's kind of all over the place. Look at some notables. Rashawn Slater, the more I've watched him, the more I like about Rashawn Slater. I think, Virginia Tech, if you look back, Virginia Tech used to get a lot more publicity as far as, their players. They still produce some NFL talent, but not as much as under Frank Beamer, they produced a lot more NFL players, and still bringing a lot of talent. It's still a school that recruits well. So Rashawn Slater, it seems like he has moved up the board. Excuse me, Christian Darrisaw is the one from Virginia Tech, but Rashawn Slater is the tackle from Northwestern, who's also shot right up. It's interesting. Jeremiah has Sewell all the way down at number 7, which is kind of surprising. He has Jalen Waddle as his number. Jalen Waddle is his number 3 receiver. Jamar Chase, number 2 on his big board. Interesting. Yeah, I think it's easy to fall in love with Jamar Chase if you watch that 2019 season. But like the case with Bateman, is you could argue, and I mean it's so hard to debate because you didn't get to see, you saw so little of Bateman, you saw so little of Chase in 2019. It's one of those things where if you just watch the 2019 tape, you're going to fall in love with Jamar Chase. But then there's the big old question mark when you come to 2020 stats. Question mark, he didn't play. And you'd like to think that he would do the same thing, but with an offense that was a little shaky from LSU this year, it makes you wonder. Trevor Moehrig from safety from TCU. He's a guy that really has jumped out to me on tape. I think, consensus best safety. Pro Football Focus has him as their best safety, and, Daniel Jeremiah has him as the top safety. I think that's the consensus there. Really like what I've seen for Moehrig and, TCU. They've got some guys in that secondary. They got a young kid that returns back next year that are very, very talented. Wusu Carmoa comes in at number 21. I keep forgetting about Carmoa. I think, he's a guy that, might go a little higher than people think on draft day, but I think he's a guy that will go no later than the late first round. I think is pushing. I think he's a mid to late round pick for sure. I think one team's going to fall in love with him in that middle to late round, whoever it may be. But whoever gets him is going to get a very versatile linebacker. Could be the Isaiah Simmons effect with the Cardinals. They might just be putting him everywhere. But it's one of those things that. He shows the ability to rush the passer, so you might as well try getting him to rush the passer. I mean, I don't think he's a guy that's going to be playing a whole lot of mainly coverage, but did so many things for Notre Dame, and be interesting to see what he runs in the 40s and see what his testing is. So. Yeah, Jalen Mayfield for Michigan, another offensive tackle, I think is getting devalued by some people. Mayfield was, he's very solid this year. 2019 was outstanding for Michigan. J.C. Horn, too, a guy I discussed on this podcast a lot, could be the best corner in the draft. Really is kind of penciled in as the number 3. Zavion Collins, okay, linebacker from Tulsa. So I want to get Zavion Collins. There's games I watched him, and I think his motor's not as high as I want it to be. But there is, he has flashes where he just makes it look so effortlessly. He gets in and just is such a good tackler, and is kind of just able to, with that size and speed, just to kind of navigate and get go sideline to sideline and get where he needs to be. Guy that was super productive at a small school, and at Tulsa it might be concerning, but I think with his size and athleticism, he could be a guy that could easily fit right into the NFL, and I think he has a high ceiling, and if he goes to a well coached defensive team with a team that really knows what they're doing, I think he could play outside in a 3-4. I think that'd be a good fit. So. Jason Owe from Penn State. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He's a guy that, the effort and the get off and his ability to be disruptive didn't match the stats. That was what Daniel Jeremiah hit it right on the head there. I watch, and the Ohio State game, he seemed disruptive, just couldn't quite get to the quarterback, just couldn't quite make the tackles for loss. And I'd say the same about that with Joseph Asai from Texas. So. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that, and I don't know. He's a guy that, like I said, I think one team could fall in love with him and take him in the first round, or if every team is worried about the production, it could be a guy that could slip to late second, third round. He's kind of a guy like a lot of edge rushers. That's kind of the prime example. There's edge rushers that that are all over the board here. So. Nick Bolton, a lot of people have him going to Tampa Bay. I could see it if they move off of Levante David. His contract's up. Nick Bolton, a little undersized is what Jeremiah says, but Bolton's a guy that really was super productive in a poor Missouri defense, and super good tackler. Looks like he's got some pretty good instincts. So. A guy that is discussed going late first round. We'll see where he goes. I think it could be later than that. But, I think, he's a guy that, who knows, could go late first. Just kind of depends. Terrence Marshall at receiver, he's kind of in the Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins territory. I mean, he was, kind of that strong number 3 in 2019 behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. But, he was super productive this year, and to me that says a lot because this LSU offense struggled. And, I thought, this could be a year maybe Terrence Marshall disappears in a very poor LSU offense. But, no, he played his tail off and was super productive. So I think that says a lot about, his character, his work ethic, and, maybe not as high a ceiling as his teammates Jefferson and Jamar Chase, but it just shows that, he's willing to work in an NFL team. He's likely a guy. He'll be on an NFL roster, and he'll help a team out on Sundays. And a guy that has dealt with some injuries. He didn't play. I think he missed at least 3 or 4 games in 2019, Marshall. But really like what I've seen out of Terrence Marshall in a big game. against Mississippi State this year. He had a big game, so yeah, really like Terrence Marshall a lot. Really like what he could bring to the table to an NFL team. So yeah. So yeah, next J.J. Watt. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. I love the fit in Pittsburgh, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen because I would love to see him play with his brother TJ, and I think that'd be a good blue collar worker like J.J. Watt is. To see him him and his brother getting after the quarterback would be super fun. I think Green Bay made sense. It'd be back where he played college football in Wisconsin. So yeah, I think that would make sense. Yeah. So Christian Barmore, a guy that's a little lower on the list for Daniel Jeremiah, had a big game in the national title, which I thought would inflate his draft stock, but it looks like he's lower on the list. Barmore from Bama, but yeah, he's talented, very talented kid and a high motor guy, and it's the Alabama effect. It makes you wonder if he was maxed out with the Crimson Tide. So. Yeah, so I'll go, we'll look up one of the latest mock drafts here. Yeah, like CBS Sport has some interesting ones. So, yeah, Lawrence number 1 to Jacksonville. Zach Wilson number 2 to the Jets. I think Zach Wilson just keeps rising and rising. And I think Zach Wilson, I think, is such a guy that is easy to get infatuated with because, when you watch the tape, he moves and just makes plays on the run. I think that's why people get infatuated with a lot of quarterbacks, which it could be that it could carry over in the NFL because a lot of guys that make plays on the run is just so fun and just so exciting to watch. It's just really just eye candy for a football fan. And I think, Zach Wilson, I think that's why his such little mistakes, such consistent play, such ability to make plays. I think that's why people are kind of, penciling him over Fields. So. Yeah. Other notables, Sean Slater going all the way up to Philadelphia at 6. Philadelphia is such an interesting team this year, what they want to do. Kind of just all over the place, really. I mean, some people have them going linebacker, quarterback, receiver. It looks like Jalen Hurts is going to be the main man. It'll be interesting to see if they bring in a veteran to give him some competition. So, yeah, those are a couple of notables I wanted to go over there. So thanks for tuning in to Big Time Football Talk, guys. Stay tuned. Till next time. Peace.